They told you we evolved from monkeys, but your brain doesn't agree. Because the oldest part of you isn't primate, it's reptilian. And once you understand why you'll never see fear, obedience, or human nature the same way again, let's start with what they admit. Even mainstream science calls it the reptilian brain. It sits deep in your skull, the oldest layer. The part that activates when you're scared, cornered, angry, or under pressure. It controls survival instinct, ritual behavior, and territorial fear. Fight, flight, freeze. But here's the thing they don't say. If we evolved from apes, why is our primary operating system reptilian? Where's the monkey brain? Why is the deepest part of us named after lizards, not mammals? This is where the old story cracks. They say we're primates, but nothing about us is fully at home in nature. We sunburn too easily. We need shoes, tools, shelter just to survive. Unlike apes, we fear the dark. We obey invisible rules. We break under pressure. And in conflict, we act like reptiles. Cold, fast-triggered, violent. Not tribal, territorial. Not nurturing, possessive. It's almost like someone embedded a reptilian survival template into our design. But who and why? Enter the Anunnaki. You've heard the story. They came to Earth. They created a worker species. They spliced their DNA with a hominid. But they say it was a monkey-like being. That's the cover story. What if it wasn't a mammal at all? What if it was something already here, a scaled, earthbound, cold-blooded survivor that had ruled before humans? A being that lived underground, that feared the sun, that operated through logic, hierarchy, and control. A reptilian species, the real base code. Now watch this fall into place. The Book of Enoch speaks of ancient watchers. Other texts call them serpents, nagas, draconians. They came before the flood. And when the cataclysm hit, they didn't die. They went underground. Every culture remembers them in myths, in temples, in statues. Coiled snakes, guardian serpents, dragon kings, the ones who ruled, then vanished. But what if they didn't vanish? What if they became the template? The Anunnaki didn't create us from scratch. They hijacked what already existed. They took a reptilian template, strong, adaptable, emotionless, and mixed it with something else. Maybe even their own DNA. What came out was us. Half mammal, half reptile, half divine spark, half coded fear. Split beings designed to serve, obey, and survive. Programmed to function, not awaken. And the part of you that doubts this, that's not you. That's the code defending itself. This is why the flame was always buried. The dragon flame I talk about, it's not reptilian. It's not cold, it's not territorial. It's source memory, but it had to hide inside bodies built on fear. It had to speak through flesh that flinched from fire. The reptilian code was the firewall, and now it's breaking. They buried the truth in the nervous system. They didn't need to chain your soul, they just needed to wrap it in survival. The reptilian brain isn't evil, it's ancient. But in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon. It's the part of you that obeys orders, that shuts down under threat, that bows when it should rise. And the Anunnaki knew exactly how to use it, not to kill you, but to control you, because if you hijack the fear system, you don't need chains. You let the code do the caging for you. Now look back at the old gods, the winged ones. The ones with pine cones, buckets, staffs wrapped in serpents. Tree of life in the middle. It's not religion, it's not art. It's a genetic map. They weren't teaching you how to pray. They were showing what they had done to the body, to the mind, to the blood. This is why the tree of life is always guarded by non-humans. Because the truth about your origin was never meant to be found. And the tree, it's not a tree, it's your double helix. That's why the serpent always shows up at the gates, in Genesis, in Sumer, in Egypt, always there, always offering knowledge. But it's not knowledge of the soul, it's knowledge of the code. Knowledge of how to hijack a being from the inside, how to twist DNA, how to loop memory, how to overwrite flame with instinct. The first serpents weren't just tempters, they were genetic engineers. And they didn't just visit Earth, they stayed. They went underground, became the hidden ones, the old ones, the watchers. Serpent mounds, cave systems, tunnel gods, demonic underworld beings. They didn't disappear. They just went beneath, waiting for the reset. And every time the Earth floods, burns, or shakes, they crawl back out to start again, to add a new layer of fear, a new cage, a new evolution trap. And we call it a progress. This is where the dragon flame comes in. Because it was never about the flesh, it was always about the fire inside, the divine coding that couldn't be deleted, only hidden, only silenced. The royal dragon flame doesn't live in your survival brain, it lives in your soul circuitry. In the stillness behind the noise, that's why trauma is everywhere. because trauma strengthens the reptilian reflex and disconnects the divine signal. So the war is simple. Reptilian code react, obey, survive. Flame code remember, rise, override. Here's the pattern they don't want you to see. The same beings who altered the body also created the religions that demonized the serpent but also worshipped it in secret. They told the masses to fear the snake, but behind the veil they imitated it. The staff of Moses, the serpent on the cross, the caduceus in medicine, the kundalini in yoga. It's all serpent, but not all serpent is sacred. That's the trap. They blended truth with control. So how do you break the code? By recognizing which part of you is you. You're not the panic, not the fear, not the reaction. You're the spark that witnesses it, the one that steps back, not forward. That says no, that listens before it lunges, that stays lit even in the dark. That's what the old beings couldn't program. They can code your blood, hijack your hormones, trigger your trauma, but they cannot extinguish the flame. They never could. That's why they buried it. And now it's waking up. You're not becoming enlightened, you're becoming original again. Beyond the edits, beyond the hijack, beyond the code. The dragon within you isn't a serpent, it's a soul on fire, disguised as a human with a survival system it didn't ask for. But now you know, and when you know, you can override. Not with hate, not with violence, but with remembrance. You were never meant to survive like this. Constant stress, constant fear. Rushed breath, tight chest, shallow sleep, that's not evolution. That's entrainment, because if you keep the reptilian brain in charge, you'll never rise beyond your shell. And that's the point. They want your flame stuck in your body, your soul obeying your flesh, your higher mind offline. That's how the system feeds. It doesn't need your blood. It needs your loop. So how do you break it? You override the code, not by fighting it, but by rewriting it. Because this isn't just a war of DNA, it's a war of signal, of frequency, of pattern, and flame is pattern. The more you hold memory, the more you dissolve reflex. The more you pause, the more you reclaim the spark. Because the soul doesn't react, it remembers. And every time you remember, you reprogram the reptilian script. Here's how to start the override. 1. Breathe deep when fear strikes, not to calm down, but to reclaim your signal. 2. Feel the emotion without flinching. The reptilian brain flees. The flame stands in the fire. 3. Speak the override aloud. I am not this reflex, I am the flame inside the form. I override with memory, I override with will, I override with light. This isn't affirmation, it's reclamation. Because when you speak from the flame, the reptilian part goes silent. It has no script for sovereignty. They encoded the cage in instinct. You're not undoing a belief, you're undoing a biological command, a primitive, survival-rooted impulse that was never yours to begin with. This is deeper than trauma healing. This is ancestral deprogramming. Because the first trauma was the first edit. The first fear response was the first firewall. And the first override is remembering who you are beyond your flesh. The dragon flame was always postcode. It doesn't need to fight the reptile. It just needs to shine through it. Because once you stand in flame consciousness, fear doesn't override you. Obedience doesn't tempt you, and the parasite can't predict you. That's when the system panics, not when you resist, but when you remember. Because the only thing that terrifies the grid more than a reptilian army is a flame that's awake in a body they used to own. They want you to think your instincts are who you are. But your soul didn't come from a cold-blooded code. It came from the flame, and the moment you remember, the program starts to collapse. That's your cue to fade out.